Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. And today I wanted to honor the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. It's summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere by creating some prayer flags. I love prayer flags, I always have. I saw this as a kids' activity, and I love anything creative that kind of takes me back to that fun childlike sense of wonder and joy. Excuse me. And so I was doing some sample painting. I'm going to do them about this size. I took some paper and cut some 6 by 6 inch squares and have been testing some different surfaces, and my camera's being all wonky. Sorry about that. So here's some of the fun ways that we're going to play with the energy of the summer solstice and the sun today. And if you're brand new to painting in your PJs with Minette, you get me with my froggy early morning voice. It's not super early, and I've been up for quite a while, had several cups of coffee already, even did another short, and I've been painting with fire all morning. In my short, you can see I painted a fun page in my new journal that I'm working in. I've been experimenting with gouache, and which is super fun to play with, and did a prayer for the summer solstice in my art journal this morning. So I think there's lots of ways to honor the energy of this season. But what I've really been noticing during this season is that I feel lit up, energized, and active. It's a typical energy that rises during the summer, and you may be noticing and feeling that energy as well. So I thought I'd want to maybe capture some of that energy in a playful way today, create a string of prayer flags that I can hang up here in my office to remind me on those colder, dark, dreary days that the summer solstice is always going to return, right? That the light will always return. It's such a, I think, a beautiful, important day to share. And I am going to go ahead and change my camera here and get that in focus. Well, come on, are you going to focus for us? Good morning. Hi from Estes Park. Oh my gosh, Tori, I can't believe you are so close. How exciting that you're up visiting family. Super fun. Maybe we could figure out a time to grab a coffee or something. Maybe you can email me and let me know if you have any free time coming up lately. That's super exciting. And I'm super excited to be back live. It feels like it's been a minute since I've been here. I've had a busy couple of weeks. Yesterday was not a fun day. I was at the dentist getting cavities filled, and I'm trying to get this. It doesn't seem to want to focus for me. There we go. That's better. It needed something to focus on. So I have a piece of freezer paper. I'm going to practice on the freezer paper. Anything kind of plastic lined. This under here is butcher paper. I tried it on the butcher paper. It worked great. I've also been collecting the insides of just coffee bags. And these worked really well, but they have a lot of texture and lines, and I want something a little bit smoother. So I'm going to try doing this on some freezer paper. Thanks, Leslie. I'm glad to be back. The dentist was not super fun yesterday at all. And I cut some squares. You don't need to do this. You can always trim them after. So this is some old, just, end papers out of some old books that got torn up, and some music papers to play with. And I have probably more than I need, but I cut a nice stack of squares, and they're 6 by 6 only because the paper I was cutting was 12 inches long. Your squares can be any size, but I kind of like the idea of maybe having a string of these small sized prayer flags. And I did not grab my hole punch, and I don't know that we'll get all the way to the end of the project, so maybe I'll record that later. But my idea would be just to punch 2 holes in the edges of the paper. I have a ton of sari ribbon and other kinds of ribbon, even just, curly ribbon you use for tying packages, and string these up into some prayer flags to hang here in my office. So I have some blank paper and some music paper, and I thought this would be really fun to play with. Again, this is freezer paper. You could probably use like a plastic Ziploc bag, anything plastic lined. Wax paper might work. It's, worth trying some different things. And on my palette, I just have a variety of yellows, a couple of reds, and an orange. And I'm kind of going to be mindful of the size so that I don't get my sun too big. And this is an experiment. I tried a couple of things and we'll see if it's going to work. I'm not going to dry my brush too much. One of the secrets is going to be to actually have the paint be just a little bit watery in there. And you'll notice this plasticky surface. I'm going to get interesting marks in the paper here where it's going to bead up because that paper is plastic. I'm not going to rinse my brush. I'm just going to keep playing with these colors of the sun and the fire, feeling into that solstice energy. So if you're just joining us, we're making a series of monoprinted suns, and I am going to make a prayer flag using these to honor the solstice today. And so I'm just getting some paint down on the page, some of it a little thicker, some of it a little with a little more water in it, and we'll just see what happens. So as you guys know, I love to experiment and try things out good that's about the right size. And I'm going to save that paint on my brush for later. And then I'm also going to take the end of the brush and see what happens if maybe I make some marks in here, very childlike. I knew I wanted to do something playful to honor the solstice, and so I actually found a similar kids activity. Happy summer solstice. Great to see you, Blanca. I'm so glad to be back with you guys. I've missed you guys. It has been a little bit crazy lately. My mythical makeover starts today. I am so excited. So this is freezer paper, acrylic paint. I put down some different colors of paint on the page. And now we're going to take our music paper here. It doesn't matter if it's right side up or not. We're just going to press that down on there. Give it a nice rub. And this kind of monoprinting is so fun. And it's called monoprinting because basically you get one print. You don't get a whole bunch of different prints, right? It's not that type of printing process, but it's really simple. And look how simple and cute that is. And this is, a old music paper, so it's a little bit yellow. So it creates some interesting sort of muted tones in that. I can see where maybe I would want a little thicker paint, but not bad for a first effort. So I'm not going to clean this off at all. I'm just going to leave that paint down there and keep going with it. And maybe we're going to get a brighter yellow here in the center. And so just noticing what it's like with a little less water, a little more water. And I'm feeling like actually a little less water was working a little bit better. Just vary the colors and the patterns up a little bit. Maybe try a different brush. I tried this morning with gouache too because I've been having fun playing with gouache and on some different surfaces, and it didn't work quite as well as the acrylic. But I have been having fun playing with gouache. So I'm sort of just sticking with this same shape for the moment, and then I'll probably switch up shapes a little bit later. But that shape is there, and I'm gonna, at some point take a baby wipe just to clean all of that off. And I grabbed, you could do this with a Q-tip, an end of a brush, but I grabbed an old clay shaper that I use for making dots. I haven't played with these for a long time. And so I'm going to see if I can get some good patterns. I think the end of the brush worked just as well, but maybe we'll see what other kind of just fun patterns, and maybe we can even move some of that paint around so we get some really playful sunshine, just activating the fire and the light of the solstice. This is just such really a powerful time of year. You may be noticing that you're feeling more energized, more action oriented, less internal. Summer is the time to get outside and play. Hi, Nikki. It's good morning. Great to see you, my friend. It is just freezer paper, and I also tested it on just butcher paper, and the butcher paper worked great as well. Nikki, this would be a fun activity to do with your school kiddos. So let's try some of this one on just blank paper, and I'm noticing my sun got a little bit big there. And I love printing this way. It's so fun. I also tried it. I have some old cutting boards, and they have a lot of texture, so I may pull one of those out and try the cutting boards. So interesting. So I can tell when I was smushing my hand back and forth, we got some smushing happening here as well. And where'd my clay shaper go? So I can always just come back in here, right, and move some of that paint around, but it's just not a perfect process, which is kind of what I love about it, right? So they come out really different, but I think these are going to be so cute. I'm probably going to come in with a black pen as well and do a little line work, mandala work on them, because why not? All right, that one was kind of fun. And I'm thinking I want a little less red, a little more yellow and orange. So let me find, where did my, they are. The fun thing about working on the freezer paper is because it's plasticky, that paint is going to mostly come right off. It's interesting, some of the texture stayed behind. And I don't need all the paint to come off. I don't need it to be perfectly clean, but the freezer paper does allow you to clean that surface and just continue to reuse that same surface. All right, so let's start with some orange this time. And I'm noticing I don't need the paint to be super thick on here as well. I'm wishing I had more jars of clean water here though, because my water is so red all of a sudden. Let's come in with some of this brighter yellow. And maybe we'll do something just a little simpler here. That's kind of fun. I think maybe a little bit more. Move that orange around a little bit. And I can't get too caught up in the painting. I live where it's very dry. And if I get too caught up in the painting part of things, this will dry. Although I could probably just spray it with some water. But I can get just caught up in the painting. And the monoprinting is fun, but you could absolutely do this process and just paint directly onto your prayer flag surface. I thought about how fun it would be to do this on some just muslin fabric as well, which I could actually use this monoprinting process with the acrylics directly on fabric, and that would be super cute too. All right, let's see what happens this time. And I think what I love about this is it's the experiment and the playfulness of what's going to happen when I lift it up. So I love that one. It came out, looks completely different than the other ones. And so, if these are all going to be strung up together, right? Just noticing the different textures. I definitely love the sheets of music paper. And this one could have had a little more paint on it, right? Maybe I didn't let that one dry quite long enough. And I'm wondering what would happen if I just sprayed this with a little paint or a little water, excuse me. Could I get another print? This is why it's called monoprinting, because normally you get one good print off of that. But let's see what happens with just adding some water. Oh, so then we get something that completely looks, again, different and super fun and a little more watercolory. So another fun example. I think I could sit here and play with these all day long because they make me so happy and the process is so fun. And for some reason, I'm pretty drawn to the oranges today. So I'm going to keep all that water on there and see what happens. If it's just a little looser and a little more watery. Maybe a little bit different shape here. There's only so many different ways that you can draw a sun, for sure. And I definitely like having the marks in there. Love the way that comes out. And it's just fun to play with paint. Fun to play with paint. So this is very meditative. I'm wanting to just keep going around and around. All right, keep that paint on the brush. Let's go back to some music paper for this one. That's fun. It says Jack in the Box on it. And Jaywalk. These were some of the songs from the music pages. I love music paper. It's one of my favorite things to collage with and create on. There's something about the shape and the designs of music that's visually appealing and just, the reminder of loving music. Okay, so that one was a little wetter, so just interesting. I still got some of that yellow behind, which is kind of cool. And I'm going to take this one and see, because that's wetter, we get another print off of that. Cool. Okay, that one is my favorite so far. That little bit more sort of washy abstract color, and I've still got some of the texture from the line making on there. Just so interesting how different they all are. And this is still one of my favorites. Definitely like those, kind of fiery colors there. And I would recommend making a whole bunch of these and then picking the ones that you love the most to make a prayer flag, or, a string of prayer flags out of. And I'm thinking what I might do is have the suns on one side and maybe a prayer or a word or something on the other side. So they get to be kind of double-sided, or if I'm patient enough to let them dry, I could print suns on both sides of the paper, especially if I want to hang them in a window. All right, so what if we have less center and more fiery rays of the sun? Get that kind of nice and watery, because I'm really liking that little bit of watery effect there. And again, just getting that texture in there. This is like the most fun part, scratching in the paint. And the extra ones that, I don't use to make a prayer flag with maybe will just get used as collage imagery in my art journal or, get painted over for something else. Like I don't feel like I'm wasting anything by making a bunch of these. All right, super cool, interesting. So the orange paint was drier, created a different effect. You can see the fun, like this one looks like it was two different prints, even though it was one print. But I really love this one, so I'm starting to get an assortment that I'm enjoying playing with. And I'm thinking maybe I'm going to try a different brush and see if that makes any difference. I don't think that it will. Definitely going through quite a bit of yellow paint. I think I want another sort of watery one. And I'm going to leave that paint that's underneath. So maybe this one feels sort of starfishy. And this one also has a very different, little bit sharper end. And let's see what happens. I also love this because it's fast, right? And doesn't take a ton of time. And that's the other thing about the summer mornings, when it's bright outside and I'm ready to get outside for my walk. I'm not, wanting to linger down here. I'm wanting to get outside and play while it's bright. Okay, that one's really cool. That one's almost kind of sunflowery in origin. So we're starting to pile these up nicely, all completely different. That was my least favorite, so I think what I'm going to do is reprint that one. I love these washy looking ones. And that one feels like it needs more yellow, so maybe I'll reprint that one as well and see what happens if we layer some of these up. I shouldn't be stacking them because they're not quite dry yet, but they will dry fast. All right. This is one of my favorite yellows, Azo Yellow Deep from Amsterdam. And maybe I'm going to start just with a little bit of orange in the center there. It's hard to get a true yellow when my water is so red. And this one has a lot of lines on it, but it didn't, like I wasn't super happy with the color, so I'm just going to print right over it and see what happens. You can see I'm getting paint on the back where I let them stack up. Definitely leaning into the yellow and the orange more than the red. Just noticing. It's not good or bad. All right, so it brightened it up a little bit, not as much as I thought it would, which is, so yellows, and reds, it's a hard color. So I can always come back in with some hand painting on these, or even maybe some finger painting feels fun. That's what it needed. It just needed those pops of yellow in there to break up that red. So as you're looking at them, what would you come back and, want to add or change up? Like I've got some thicker paint over there, so maybe I want some of that little bit thicker around the outsides. And so this one now is feeling just a little bit more fun. That one's got a lot of paint, so let's let that one dry quite a bit. And I think maybe that's what this one needs as well. It's still pretty wet. And this, paper is not super resilient, so I can't do too much with it, but maybe what it's wanting is just more yellow, and that feels happier. Move that yellow around. And then we have that fiery sun kind of in the center there. Which makes me curious about what else could I do with all of the details. Yep, yellow posca would be great. Bye, Blanca. Great to have you here this morning. Poscas would be super fun to add details to these for sure. Maybe we're going to make this one a little more flower-like. All right, Diego, come on. He is being so pesty this morning, just insisting on being in my lap. All right. So I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to go back maybe to one of them that is a little bit more dry and see what else I would want to add to it. So this right here is feeling kind of fun, and I'm wondering if we can get another sort of sketchy, interesting watercolory one off of this or not. We'll find out. And I like to use up all of the paint on there as well. So all that did was create a background, right? So that's okay. That one will get dry and then we'll do something bright over it, but it did allow me to just get some nice color down on that background. It's going to cause that paper to roll all up. But now I just have a nice piece of collage paper, or I can add a different one, a different sun once that one is dry. All right. I'm looking at these going, I really like them. Do I want to do any more? I'm not even sure I want to add any black or marks to them. They're pretty cool the way they are. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 6 that I like. So I think I'm going to stop there. Oh, interesting. I only ended up with one on the music paper that I like, and I wanted definitely a couple on that music paper to start to create that string of them. So I am going to do a couple more on the music, but I think 6 would make a nice string. And what I love about this is it has the black marks on it, so it just creates a little visual interest and contrast here. But these are all doing great, and I can go find grab my hole punch and my ribbon and show you how I would put the whole thing together so I can hang it up. All right. So I really liked that very first one, how that came out. So we'll see if we can recreate that a little bit. It was a little more watery. Just add a little water to that paint. It's much harder to do this with a kitty in your lap, just saying, especially this giant boy. But he's sitting here so sweetly purring, happy to be part of the party. Aren't you? Yes, you are. He's smiling up at me saying, yay, so happy. All right. And then I think what I liked was just those scratchy marks that really just break up the paint. And because that's watery, I'm going to try tapping a little bit instead of maybe smushing that paint and see what happens. And it's always just kind of magical to see the surprise of what happens or doesn't happen and where the paint goes. And once these are all sort of strung together, you're not going to see all those individual details as much, but I'm wondering if I can maybe just get a little bit of that shape back here. But I don't need to add more paint, right? I can just take some of that paint away. So not a perfect one. I love this side, but that side, it's okay, but it'll be perfect when I get into the string of them. I think that must have been all the music paper that I had. So I'm wondering, what can I do with this same paint that's on here? I have lots of music paper. That's just all the music paper I had cut up. See if we can clean this up a little bit. Okay, the scratchy part is definitely my favorite part. Again, I love activities like this, especially in the context of summer, and summer solstice was always such a time of play, right? And crafting, all the different things that we got to do in the summer that maybe we didn't do other times of year, tie dyeing, just bringing back some of those simple crafts to our creative practice can inspire us to try new things. And then this monoprinting technique you can use to create beautiful collage images for your journals. Okay, that one is super cool. Love that one. So the paper was still a little wet. The paper has a lot of color, but really digging how that one came out. Super, super fun. All right. And I'm wondering if I can get just a little bit more color off of there. Just that little bit of speckledy color makes me so happy. So I'm going to go walk over to the other side of my studio and grab some ribbon and my hole punch. And let's get these strung up on a ribbon because I don't like leaving projects half done. Because if I leave them half done, then they don't get finished. And of course, I had seen my hole punch sitting right here. All right, well, I can always use an awl if I can't find what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for some ribbon. All right, so I'm feeling like some blue ribbon would be fun for stringing this on. Oh, and this one's really pretty. Probably not long enough. Is there another? Oh, look, there's two pieces of it. Nice. And since I couldn't find my hole punch, we're just gonna make it up. I can always find it later. And I'm just gonna put some small holes to get those ribbons through carefully in the little corners of the pages. And again, I'll probably do this with a hole punch once I find my punch. And I love the ribbon, so I want the ribbon to show on the front because I think it'll add, again, some of the texture and the visual interest that I love. So I'm actually going to have the ribbon come across the top of the images. This is where that hole punch would make this easier. And I want to leave just a little bit hanging on the ends, right? So, I could tie this to a push pen, or if I want to hang it in a window, just use some uh, any kind of tape to just stick that to the window. And this ribbon is so pretty. Isn't that pretty? Look at that beautiful lacy, loopy look. And if you're anything like me, you have stacks of stuff hanging around the studio, and sometimes you're wondering, what should I do with this? And if your paper tears, don't worry about it. You can just reinforce it on the back with a little tape. All right, so we don't want that to be too tight. We want it to actually hang a little bit, almost like a banner, right? So that our this will hang loosely on here and neatly. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next one. I'm going to come from the back. Maybe should have grabbed my awl, but you know what? I've got a million paintbrushes here, so I'm just going to use a paintbrush to just gently open up that hole and nudge that through. So see, if you don't have a hole punch, no problem. And you get to decide how close together or far apart you want them to be. This one's still a little damp, so it's a little bit curling up on me a little bit. And I want them to have a little bit of room between so that they will hang neatly. And we'll see how many we can get on this one piece of ribbon. And then I would just tie the two pieces of ribbon together to continue that string. And again, I have a thing for prayer flags. I love the meaning and symbolism. I think they're beautiful. And prayer flags in the Tibetan culture were hung out in the wind, and so every time the wind blew them, it was as if those prayers were being sent off, and I love that concept. My fingernails are actually too long and I can't get it through there. Good, there we go. All right, so much fun. Again, I love simple childlike activities like this. I'm teaching a class on cultivating joy this evening for a group that's doing a book study on Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And we're using crayons for that activity. And I'm so excited to just help people remember even just the joy of coloring with crayons. And for tomorrow, I want to talk about creating a joy journal and how we can activate joy in our daily lives. And I'm thinking that if they're not lying flat, so this one, because the paper's a little more fragile, I might just put a little dot of glue right here in the center and glue this down a little bit so that ribbon stays nice and flat, just troubleshooting as we go along. And I think that's going to help hold it on there and not get pulled away. That feels good. So this paper, you can see the paper's not folding and bending, so it's going to be a little bit neater and not need as much help. All right, let's get, oops, and now I got drip that. All right, I'm going to move this palette. I just dragged all my ribbon through my red paint there, so now I'm extra red. Clean my hands off, and let's clean this ribbon off. So now we have some reddish blue ribbon. It's all good. All right, I'm going to just use the end of my paintbrush to gently poke some holes in there, and that works great. It's about the same size as my little hole punch wherever that is. And now I'm going to get some paint on all of these things, and it's just going to be okay. Got to remember, I'm not a perfectionist. Everything happens for a reason, and it all ends up turning out perfectly. It's one of my favorite mantras. Everything is working out perfectly. Just turn that ribbon around so it's all facing the same direction. Keep it nice and flat across there. All right. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this, but I'm having so much fun and cannot wait to go and hang this in my office window to just have some bright sunshine. I got to make sure I hang it high enough that, the cats don't think it's just a toy for them to play with. But super cute, simple, easy activity. And again, I am going to just add that little bit of glue to this one just so it doesn't curl that paper up when it's hanging. Just using a little bit of glue stick, nothing fancy. All right. So this is where I'm going with this. I have a few more to hang on here, which you don't need to watch me string them, but I wanted you to get, an idea of what you could do to create your own prayer flag, whether you're doing it just for you or whether you're doing it with kids or friends. It's a simple, fun activity and a creative way to just honor the summer solstice today here in the Northern Hemisphere by creating a simple band of prayer flags. And it might even have been fun to do a coat of blue, let it dry, and then do the suns on top. Like as I do one, I start to have more and more ideas about what could be fun. But I think this is a great place to leave it for now. And I'll be back tomorrow with some fun ideas on creating a joy journal and how to use your morning art activation process to cultivate more joy and gratitude in your life. So enjoy your day, my friends. Happy summer solstice to all of you, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.